Hey everyone, Therese here. Welcome to my first monthly bullet journal plan with me video of 2025. I hope you have been doing well. If you're looking for something to spark your creativity this year, you are in the right channel. So yeah, let's jump right into my February 2025 bullet journal setup. I'm working on my Lila Journals Grid notebook. I shared my new yearly setup before the new year, so if this makes you want to start bullet journaling, it's not too late. I have a lot of yearly and monthly ideas on the channel, so feel free to check them out. Something I'm excited about this year is trying a new brand of watercolors. I recently got this 24 color Holbein artist watercolor tube set. Though I have tried Holbein gouache before, this is going to be my first time using their watercolors. I also got an empty tin palette and magnetic half pans, and I actually love how compact it is and doesn't take up a lot of space since I have so much stuff around my desk. I am also going to be using these Princeton number 6 round brush and number 1 script liner. I will link the supplies I'm using in the description box below, and of course you don't need to have these specific products to bullet journal or recreate the paintings. You can use whatever you have. My monthly setup always starts with a cover illustration. I will be painting on a separate paper for this since I will be having a colored background later. This is 180 GSM vellum board cut into the same size as the page and temporarily attached it here using a clip. My theme for this month is all about desserts. There's a plethora of desserts in the world, but I'm mainly focusing the illustrations with desserts having berries as the main ingredient. I chose this theme because I got inspired by a baking class called Baking Bootcamp Cakes and Crust by Abby Dodge that I took on Craftsy, which is the sponsor of today's video. Craftsy is an online community and resource where millions of crafters, makers, and DIY enthusiasts find creative inspiration, advance their skills, and learn new ones along the way. Baking is a class that I focused the least when I studied hotel and restaurant management back in university, but recently it's something that I want to relearn and master the skills in. I find this class to be really helpful to refresh my knowledge and learn more techniques about baking cakes and crusts. And I love that the classes are broken down into easy to follow lessons and are led by friendly, award-winning instructors who share their creative wisdom as they provide step-by-step demonstration. I have family members celebrating their birthdays this February, so I'm excited to bake some treats at home. I'm also looking forward to follow this red velvet cake recipe and the class about homemade chocolate candy, truffles, bonbons, and more. But there are tons of crafty classes that you can take here apart from baking. Craftsy offers more than 2,000 exciting classes in over 20 popular categories like crochet, knitting, painting, photography, cake decorating, woodworking, and more. Craftsy is always creating new classes to keep you coming back for more, so you will have all you need to keep your creative juices flowing. If you'd like to take the classes and get creative, the first 1,000 of you to click the link on the video description will get a full year of premium membership to Craftsy for only $1.49. This is valid for new members only. Thank you so much, Craftsy, for sponsoring this video. My watercolors were out of the frame most of the time, so I'm placing them on top of the page for this part, so you will have an idea how I use them in the painting process for this specific illustration. I'll put them on the side later so I can work comfortably. I wanted to paint a slice of red velvet strawberry cake for my cover, and we started by mixing some shades of red such as Crimson Lake, Rose Madder, and Vermilion. But you can actually just use Rose Madder and Vermilion if you're using Holbein as well, or if you have deep red color on your watercolor set. We are painting the cake itself with this mix using our round brush. You can also see me leave some white spots because those will be the cream cheese filling. So you can sketch this from the get-go and use that as a guide to which layer of the cake you need to paint on with a specific color. We are using the same mix for the sliced strawberries, but we're gonna pick a bit more vermilion to add a vibrant layer to them. And while we still have this color on our brush, and load our brush again with the cake color mixture to paint the rest of the shape, and add more rose madder color to add shading. So we are just painting a couple more strawberries on the plate using the same colors, and we can vary this by painting a smaller full strawberry and a sliced one. We are only done on the first stage of the painting. Now it's time to add more life by adding more details. We are mixing rose madder, vermilion, and brown to create a darker shade of the color we used earlier. Then we're going to apply this to areas where the shadows or the darker areas are. When you pick a reference photo online, you can try to observe the parts that are lighter and the parts that are darker. And doing this technique also allows us to create separation to different elements on the illustration. For example, there is a cream cheese frosting in between the cake and the strawberry top. So we are painting this dark shade around the frosting. We will also add this later around the bottom of the strawberry, but we focus on the cake details for the meantime. So we are also applying this to add shadows on the side of the top layer. I'm also using this time to add more vibrance to the top surface by using more vermilion. I'm just spreading the color around the edges while keeping the lighter parts around the center. A velvet cake has a crumbly texture, so we also want to add that detail to our painting. So what we're doing is to load more pigment on the same mixture to the tip of our brush. Remember to not add too much water. And we're gently dabbing the tip to create these random strokes. Then we're doing another layer of that using our darker shade. We are also applying this around the edges of the filling. Now let's work on the strawberry slices. We are using our script liner brush to paint the details. There are white veins and around the center, but since our first layer is light, we will be painting the flesh or the darker parts using a deeper shade of red. But if it looks kind of blending together, we can just paint white on top of the veins again. After that, we can paint our cream cheese filling. It's usually white with a yellow tinge, but on the inside, the color of the cake may reflect a bit on the filling, so we mix white, red, and a bit of black to paint the shadows. And we can also add little red crumbs around. Onto my favorite part is painting the strawberry top. The next step is to paint the echines, or the tiny pore-like structure on the surface using deep red on the highlighted part and a bit of purple on the mix on the shadowed part. The initial layer looked too light at this point, so we will be adding a slight wash of color to darken it a bit. Now using our detail brush, we are adding these dark curvy lines. I actually refined the highlights a bit here with white just on a few areas, and add the little seeds using June Brilliant color or pinkish yellow, then paint some more shadows around the flesh until it looks okay in my eyes. We have a couple more strawberries to paint here, but I hope you already got the idea. Okay, so we are painting cream cheese frosting underneath the strawberry, so we can add the yellow tinge here. And the base is a mix of white and permanent yellow deep. Then add a bit of black for the shadows. We also have the leaves of the strawberries, so this adds a complementing color to our illustration. we are mixing Tierra Verde, Yellow Deep, and Yellow Lemon to create this bright shade of green, and apply that to the bottom part of the leaf on the left, which is the highlighted area, and blended that with lemon yellow. But you can also see me painting the other leaves with different shades of green. The point is they get darker towards the right side. When our cake is done, we are now painting this silver fork on the right side. We are using a mix of white and black. We are applying more pigment on the half part. Then we clean our brush, leaving it a bit damp, and slowly blend the pigment on the rest to create some highlights and dimension. We can add more black to our mix to deepen the shadows. And lastly is to use a darker gray to create sharper edges using our detail brush. The next thing we're painting is, of course, our plate. We are using white with a hint of yellow ochre, and just use this to fill the whole space. For the shadowed areas, we are adding a bit of brown and red and mix it with more water to dilute it. So we have our light reflection from the left side, so we will apply this around the bottom edge of the cake, on the strawberries and fork. We also want to add some gold detailing on the plate. We are still using the same watercolors, but we can kind of imitate the color by using yellow ochre and burnt sienna. We are just painting these circular lines with a yellow ochre base, and then add the darker shade using burnt sienna. Our red velvet strawberry cake is now done. Now I'm just adding a little color on the background using white and a hint of red, and shadows as well under the plate using brownish gray. We will be writing our February title using the fine tip of this dark brown Ohuhu brush pen, and I chose this rounded kind of lettering style. And also drawing some lines and corners just to add some more elements on the empty areas. We have margins around, if you can see it in camera, so we're going to cut those negative spaces. Like I said, there will be a background color here. I printed this brown colored paper, and we can just nicely put them together on this page. You can also paint the brown parts using opaque paints like gouache, but I just like the solid look of the colored paper, and it gives a nice contrast to our painting. I also added some drop shadows around the cutout using the same dark brown brush pen, and touched up the shadows a bit behind our cake painting. Alright, that's our yummy February cover page painting. It is time to move on to the other side of the spread for our calendar. Well, I could do this from scratch, but I decided to print this as well. I wanted the boxes with color gradient using the same color palette of the painting, and also some faint outlines for the title and border, because I just wanted to match the handwritten look of the February title and the lines. So I'm using this Archer and Olive acrylograph paint pen. The ink is acrylic and opaque, so it shows up nicely on the colored page. Okay, our cover and calendar spread is finally complete. We can now flip through the next spread and create my habit trackers on the left page. We are using the same brown paper to cover about 1.5 inches towards the edge, as well as this orange paper cut into a small rectangular shape, and 6 of these smaller rectangular boxes in an off-white color placed on top of the orange paper. The boxes are for my trackers, and I'm using my go-to round layout. It won't be an interactive one, but I have a different idea for that later. So I'm drawing these round shapes freely. If you have a stencil, you can use that too. I'm initially going to use my notebook therapy stencil, but the shapes were a bit bigger and I wanted each shape to have a bit more spaces in between, so I just drew them freehand. I remember buying Sakura souffle jelly rolls in different colors before. They're in my old craft box and I forgot I had them for quite some time. The ink was already dry, but I was able to revive it by dipping the tip on water and scratching it on paper until the ink started to flow. I also want to have some flower decoration on the left corner, so I'm using another separate paper to paint this combination of red and white flowers. We start with this bright yellow for the center of the flowers and the same vermilion and rose madder mix that we used for the cake for the base layer of the flowers, and white with a hint of yellow ochre for the white flower. I think I diluted the red mix a bit too much here and I was going for vibrant red flowers, so I used more pigment of vermilion with little water to paint the petals again. As for the leaves, we are using a mix of yellow ochre and tierra verde, then we are adding a bit of brown to the mix to paint the veins. Then I went back to the flowers again to paint some shadows. I added a bit of black on our red mixture and just applied it around the inner petals. Lastly is using burnt sienna for the stamen of all the flowers. And that's done. I just cut the white spaces as well and glue it on the bottom corner of the tracker. I'm also drawing these swirly lines using the acrylograph pen, kind of resembling the fancy dessert plating. I'm also writing these random scribbles on the top left. I just felt putting something else here, but I feel like the strokes were too thick, but it's okay. I also did the same thing on the other corner at the bottom, but I'm using the souffle gel pen. If you're wondering why I didn't use this instead, it's because it's not showing up on the colored paper. Alright, moving on to our next page, we are painting a large brown ribbon on the center. We are using a mix of yellow ochre and yellow gray. We start with a very light layer, then we will gradually add more brown pigment to add shadows and details. So the next shade is using burnt umber to paint the lines where the creases are. Then the first shading using a bit of burnt umber to our base layer mix. And the final shadows using brown and a bit of black. This was also inspired by the Craftsy class about handmade chocolate candy, which is also called bonbons. And I was looking up for more pictures online and saw the cute gift boxes. So that's the idea for this one. This page is just for the packaging kind of layout with a window cut out. So yeah, this is just a decorative page, nothing functional about it. But it's gonna look cute, I promise. I'm using this X-Acto knife and a cutting board behind the page to cut around the ribbon. Then we're going to cover the white spaces with our brown colored paper again with the same window cut. So we want the extended part of the ribbon to show as well. So what we can do is to glue the top half first, fold the area where the edge of the ribbon is as a guide, and cut. Then we will just do the same thing on the other half. Glue, fold, and cut. If there's a bit of white space, we can just cover it with paint. I drew the same border like the calendar and wrote "especially for you" on top. I also glued the same colored paper and painted the ribbon behind the page off camera, as well as a couple more floral decoration just like the one we have on our habit trackers to save us some time and not make this video much longer. And this is where we are continuing the inside of the bonbon box. We are painting a grid using yellow ochre with 3x4 slots. Inside each box, we are painting the areas surrounding each bonbon with burnt umber. So we are doing a light base and go over it again with more pigment, but mainly on the edges. It was only this time when I learned that this is called bonbons. There are so many kinds of bonbons with different designs, so feel free to choose whatever design you want. For me, I just chose the simpler ones. I have 6 variants, but I just doubled them and tweaked the toppings a bit to form all 12 of them. I also have a couple white flowers, but let's just say they are flower-shaped white chocolate. Then we are also painting these yellow corner lines. The same thing with our habit tracker. This time of the year is when I like to slow down and do more crafty activities aside from journaling. I got inspired by the self-care bingo layout I see online, so I'm using the same idea but make it a crafty bingo page. Instead of the regular bingo card, we are doing the foldable one. So on each box, we are just going to cut the sides except the top. We glue another brown paper behind the page. Then we can write all the craftivities or crafty activities we want to do. I have polymer, clay, jewelry making, paper quilling, painting, paper mosaic, cake decorating, DIY sketchbook, amigurumi crochet, pressed flowers, embroidery, scrapbooking, knitting, and making clay charms and trinket dishes. And that's it! See, it's so cute. I think it's one of my favorites in this setup. But yeah, we gotta move on again to the next spread. On top of this brown page, we are gluing this off-white paper with irregular cut on the sides. This will be for my goals and focus page. I always thought I need to arrange my spreads like after the cover spread, it should be the monthly planning. Like it was kind of fixed in my mind for some time. But yeah, you can rearrange your spreads whatever way works for you. I'm also drawing decorative corners here except for the one on the bottom left because we will be adding an illustration in that part. Likewise, I'm using a separate paper. I can already feel this book is getting chunky at this point, but I want to stick to the design I have in mind. Did I already tell you that cheesecake is my favorite? And any dessert that has cream cheese. Since February is all about desserts, this theme won't be complete without my favorite blueberry cheesecake. I mean, you can give me all the flavors, but I love blueberry the most. Oh, I think for the most part, until I tried Biscoff cheesecake. Oh my goodness. But my overall is still blueberry. So we are painting the cheesecake filling with white and yellow deep mix. We are painting the upper parts with more yellow and it goes lighter towards the bottom. Cheesecakes have brown crusts, but the sauce is dripping in this composition and is covering the crust. So speaking of the sauce, we are painting that with the same shade of red from our velvet cake. It's interesting to know that while blueberries are commonly referred to as blue, their actual color is more like dark shade of purple, and the insides are more pinkish than blue. So when you cook them, the colors balance out to be a bright purple. So in this painting, we paint the cooked blueberry toppings with purple and red, while the uncooked garnish on the sides with Prussian blue, cobalt blue, and black. We're just building up our blueberry sauce by using Crimson Lake, which has a purple tinge to it. We apply that around the blueberry toppings and on the dripping sauce. I'm going back to the blueberries here to add the dark purple shadows too by mixing a bit of black to a thick pigment of violet. Then we are adding some subtle textures as well on our cheesecake using yellow gray. And lastly are the highlights using the Sakura white jelly roll pen to kind of add like glaze around the blueberry toppings and sauce. Now we can cut the excess spaces around our finished painting and glue it on the bottom corner of our goals and focus page. Moving on to the next, we are turning several pages into Dutch doors with tabs. We have 9 pages that we cut 4 dot spaces on the edges with 2x4 spaces on each tab. Then I printed these different yellow and pink tones. I only need a small piece of them, so I just printed all 9 shades in one paper. Then we're going to glue each color by wrapping them from the front to the back and cut it to the same size of the tab. If you don't have a printer at home, you can absolutely do this with your colored pens or paints. After doing the tabs, we are adding this brown paper as a background on the next empty page. Now it's time to paint another dessert. This is a caramel Swiss roll. We are painting the sponge cake using a mix of yellow ochre and yellow deep. Then we are adding a mix of burnt umber and burnt sienna to paint the edges and the roll on the inside. We create texture as well using the same technique we did for the red velvet cake by tapping motions and gradually blend them. Around the surface of the roll is shaded with a pigmented yellow deep. Desserts with dripping sauce always look tasty to me, so that is what we're doing with this Swiss roll as well. We are painting this dripping caramel sauce with yellow deep base. The edges with burnt sienna to create a dimensional look and darken some areas a bit with burnt umber. We're going to define the highlights later, but for now we paint the strawberry, blueberry, and cream toppings. Let me know in the comments if you have tried this caramel and berry Swiss roll combination. I was looking it up online, but it might have a different name. But yeah, I hope you don't mind me skipping some steps here since we already painted strawberries and blueberries many times here. And of course, there has to be some leaves as well around for more color. Then we can add the highlights using our white gel pen. As for our plate, we are painting this round wooden dish using yellow gray for the base and burnt umber for the shadows. So this page is the cover for my ministry note spreads, and we are writing the title above the illustration with the souffle gel pen and a scripture from Psalms 119:103 that says, "How sweet are your words to my taste, sweeter than honey to my mouth." I've switched from devotional spreads to ministry notes since I already have a home church called Fivefold Church in LA, and I'm using this to take notes of the anointed teachings. So I will have 4 full spreads to use each Sunday, and I only need a simple, spacious layout. Around the middle of these Dutch door pages is my weekly cover. I feel like I already did many paintings in this setup, but let me just paint one more. This one is a creme caramel with raspberries and blueberries. We are using similar color palette. We start with the cream using yellow deep and white, where we have the darkest tone of yellow on the top and goes lighter to the bottom by blending it with white. Then we have this brownish texture on the bottom. It may look like a cheesecake crust, but this is like the air bubbles after you take them out of the steamer and they're covered with the caramel. We are painting the base of the dripping caramel with a light consistency of yellow and layer it with burnt sienna, while leaving thin curvy space around the rim and spaces around the edges of the drip. We are definitely adding the white highlights with a gel pen later too, but it's nice and semi-realistic to see the color of the cream color under the caramel. Next are our raspberries using the same paint mixture we used for the strawberries. The difference between the two when it comes to appearance is that the raspberry has scales-like surface, so after we paint the base color, we are using our script liner to paint the details by doing these round shapes that are close to each other. Then we're going to add shadows by painting each shape on the inner side, and also make sure to paint darker shades on the right side to create dimension and separation on each raspberry, just like we did earlier on the other clusters of berries. We also have blueberries, and I know you got how I did that already. Then under the berries is whipped cream using white and yellow ochre. We got some leaves around too, just for some presentation. We are serving this on a glass patisserie footed dessert plate using gray or a mix of black and white with hints of yellow, red, and purple to show reflections of the dessert colors. It's quite extra though, and it looks nice, but it is ideal to eat this in a bowl or a ramekin in real life. But one last touch is our white gel pen highlights on the berries and caramel glaze. My weekly tasks title will be under our painting, and we are still using the same souffle gel pen. Then we can flip to the next Dutch door to create the layout for the first week of February. I want to keep this minimal and simple too, since everything else is painting heavy. I am dividing the spread into 8 sections by drawing double lines using the brown fine liner. Then we write the dates on a large font size and the days under in smaller size. We are now on to the last spread we will be making in this video, which is my monthly review. I covered the whole spread with brown paper. Then we are adding 6 colored rectangular paper boxes in different pink tones. I'll have my usual open-ended questions on each box like grateful for, small wins, lessons learned, challenges to improve, and looking forward to. And to add a bit of decoration, I already painted a couple of these red and white flowers just like what we did on the habit tracker and glued them on the top corners. And lastly, our decorative lines around the border. And that finally completes our very sweet dessert-themed February 2025 bullet journal setup. I hope I didn't make you hungry, but we have come to the end of this video, so let's do a quick flip through of all the pages we made here. I hope you enjoyed this plan with me video and gave you lots and lots of inspirations for new layouts and paintings to practice on your own monthly setup. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. I'll also try to make this available as a printable or digital download by the end of the month, so make sure to join the website email list at tottocharizze.com, and also please leave a like and let's stay connected by subscribing to this channel if you want to see more art and bullet journaling videos from me. Thank you all so much for your time watching. Take care and have a lovely month ahead. I love you all. Bye!